Okay, it's not too bad, right? Not just everybody. So here's my disclaimer. No disclosures, but here's my disclaimer. I absolutely love Gen Z. I love the energy. I love the passion for social justice. I love the wanting to affect positive change in the world. And I got some receipts. So I am the oldest of 8 cousins on my mom's side. So there's 2 of them with my sister-in-law, both young millennials and Gen Z. These young children here let me play volleyball with them once a week. Again, another one of my sort of 23-year-old volleyball Gen Zers. And then my favorite Gen Z is the one I produced. So there is my 12-year-old. Okay, so what is this not going to be? This is not going to be me telling young millennials and Gen Z that they're lazy and entitled and asking for too much. This is not going to be me telling older faculty that, you know, they're too traditional and old and ineffective and wrong. All right, it's not going to be either of those things. There's no blaming anywhere going on. We're going to compromise, right? Meet me halfway. We all need the exercise. Okay. So here's the players in our game today. So a lot of the med school deans are kind of in the baby boomer generation. So these are the age ranges that I've picked. You know, it's flexible, right? So 46 to 64, the baby boomers. Our main educators right now are a lot of Gen X, 65 to 80, or early millennials. Millennials are going to be 81 to 94.
Thanks for not saying elder.
Yeah, I don't know. There's going to be some triggering words in here, but that was going to be one. Okay. Gen Z is born between 95 and 2012. And again, I made this fit my narrative, so I can get my little chest in there. And young millennials. Okay. So where do I stand? I'm a millennial. My most millennial trait is big purchases happen on big laptop screen. All right, so let's go through. I have selected movies from each year so we can kind of bookend. And let's talk about some of the values that, you know, again, we're generalizing, generally traditionally important to these generations. So baby boomers, we go from It's a Wonderful Life to Mary Poppins. Post-World War II, there was a sharp increase in birth rates. This is the start of dual income households. Okay, so that family structure at home is starting to change a little bit. Major cultural changes was the in-home television. And values are hard work is going to earn prosperity. You work hard enough, you're going to get there, kid. Gen X, we've got Sound of Music to The Empire Strikes Back. These are career-driven parents. Sometimes we're starting to see a little more divorce, okay? So the household dynamic is changing a little bit. This is their latchkey kids, right? This free-range childhood. You're going to go outside and come back when the lampposts come on. Culturally, so very first early computers, early video games, culturally MTV and film start to be very important in life and identification and who I am as a person. Values are job stability, financial security, and we're starting to see some of the importance of work-life balance. Oh, I do like to do things out of the house. We're just starting there. Okay. Millennials. So Raiders of the Lost Ark, Forrest Gump. Millennials, by definition, are coming into adulthood at the turn of the century. Okay, so culturally, we grew up with the internet and social media, but still know how to use a landline phone, that thing with the cord. We've had 2 recessions in our adulthood, so the 2008 and then the COVID recession. And values are a little bit less religion, a little bit less children. Education is very important. Okay. Oh, it's baby Brenda using a landline phone. Facial expression in this picture is just funny. Okay, all right, here we go, the main event. Gen Z, 95 to 2012. So we got Toy Story to Django Unchained. And, you know, Gen Z has had a longer childhood, right? No memory of life before the smartphone. We've had tech the whole time. Only 18% have worked as teens or young adults. Millennials was only 28%, which seems low. But that's what the numbers show. 48% identify as a racial or ethnic minority. 57% are planning for college, and as a group, they are less likely to drop out of high school. So again, highly educated. Most are progressive, pro-government, believe diversity is a good thing, and that same-sex marriage is good for society. And 60% say that forms should include male-female, more than male-female as gender options. Okay? Well, what did I say? 5 minutes? Did we hit 5 minutes? Okay. So again, the second educational teaching tool. So in ways to, I'll bring this all together later, in ways to make our lectures different, right? How do we make it more interesting? So Slido is a polling tool And I sometimes using these new tools is a little bit intimidating. So for faculty, anybody making a lecture in the room, this is what the login page looks like. It's very user friendly. This is pulling up the curtain, right? So here's like what it looks like in an earlier version of this lecture. It's not too bad. It's pretty user friendly in how to make these polls. Okay. So there we go. We're gonna find out who's here today. So I put this QR code into my presentation. I have you guys scan it. I open it on my phone. I open the poll. And so now what's going to come up on your phone, hopefully, assuming everything works right, is you'll have the option to fill out. And then you'll see the results on your own phone as they come in. So I don't have to pull it up here. You can see it on your own device. And let's see who's here. This also gives me an idea of how many people-ish are participating for later activities as well. I didn't think there'd be much silent generation here, but I didn't want anybody to feel excluded. Here too. There we go. All right.
Do you feel like you're in the minority?
I am as a minority. That's all right. Okay, good. So we got a little of everything. We got some Gen Z guys. Be cool, my friends are here. Let's go. We're gonna go to the next one. So you can put your phone down for now. We'll have another one in a bit. Okay. All right, let's get started. Let's talk about the airing of the educational grievances. So what are complaints? What are the issues? Okay. And these are going to be generalizations. Okay. So give me the answer. I want the answer. Great. We did all this work. We talked about a case. We did a question, but what was the answer? What was the diagnosis? Okay. This group can be described as entitled, too informal. They will not come to class. In elementary school, so asking what the elementary school teachers are seeing for this generation, they called it learned helplessness, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. We go to social media for advice, right? Over educators. I'm not going to ask my mentor. I'm just going to search Reddit real quick and see what that shows. Is a frustration for educators. And then just so much more anxious. The level of anxiety in the schools they need to apply to and all of that. Much more anxiety. Why? Okay, these are generalizations, right? Everything we're talking about is generalization. We're not singling anything out. So what is Gen Z when they're looking at the world? As they are growing up, what does the world look like? So from the outside, the world kind of looks dangerous. We've got school shootings. We've got natural disasters. The pressures of social media being so prevalent create a very different environment from outside in. And so we're leading to increasing anxiety. And so for natural disasters, I was like, all right, can we prove that? We said we can. So this is insurance claims for the 10 worst natural disasters. And you see all this is going to be Gen Z's lifetime. So just climate's different. What do they see from home? Okay, what does home life look like? Supportive, present parents, right? Parents are there. They're better relationships. Even if there's a divorce, both parents recognize the importance of supporting the child and being involved. This is a less free-range childhood, right? We are organizing play dates for kids. We're not just being like, go outside and come in when it's dark. We're going to arrange it. We're going to know where our kid are at all time. We got the Live 360 going, right? It's a little bit of a more insulated childhood. Again, the social media leads to, I'm missing out. I need to be there. This person's doing this. It looks so much better. And we encourage them to have fun, right? You want you to work hard, but don't grow up too fast. Enjoy your childhood. I didn't get to. And so that mindset is what we are giving to the young millennials and Gen Z. And so it's less neededness, less children, less working, right? And so, they just get to worry about themselves. I don't need you to take care of your little brother. I don't need you to babysit. I got it handled. And so that concept of neededness is going to affect how kids grow up. So this is a very famous book, The Anxious Generation, and I think there's some things that are particularly relevant as we do medical and residency education. Some numbers from that book. So the percentage of kids who meet with friends after school is down by 50% from the 90s. So again, just more insulated, more sheltered, with the worst decline being in 2010. So a less social childhood, the less problem solving on your own without parents there to intervene and make sure we're not getting bullied or whatever has led to a little bit different social skills compared to previous generations. Parents have a fear of perception from the community, right? If I let my 7-year-old walk down 3 doors to their friend's house, I know it's fine. The kid knows it's fine. But what are people going to think if they see my kid walking or doing whatever, right? So there's perception that it's going to be perceived as dangerous and you're going to get people involved that don't need to be involved. So learned helplessness, I really like to identify as like a little bit of less grit, just a little bit less ability to push through things that previous generations maybe would have attacked differently. So think about this. Would you let your 5-year-old walk to school? Your 5-year-old walk 1/4 of a mile, 1/2 a mile to school, maybe in a group, maybe with other kids. Would you let them? Would you let them walk to school? Because they used to. People used to send their kids walking 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile to school in a group and be like, all right, watch each other. Yeah, exactly.
You
Well, we
lose your
don't do
ball.
that, right? No, probably nobody would feel comfortable doing that. Okay, well, I mean, whatever we got. Okay. Would you let your 10-year-old stay at home by themselves sick? Because again, this used to happen. Just don't open the door for anybody. If I don't teach my kid how to ride a bike, it's on me, right? You know, for a while there was talk about millennials, they don't know how to change a car tire. Well, like if you didn't make me do it, like I don't want to learn how to do it. Who wants to learn how to change a car tire? But that's our job when raising this generation was to teach them the skills. And if we didn't teach them, then they don't know how to do it. So I love this. I love this comparison like the Gen X childhood to what we do now. You know, nobody's leaving their kid home from school sick by themselves, right? We're gonna sit there with them, we're gonna check the temperature 4 times a day. But it used to be just like, all right, you're fine. I'll be home after work. All right, so again, numbers. National test scores started to decline in 2012, and then we had a further decline with COVID. Why? What happened? Oh, in 2010, the average teenager now has a smartphone. So now we have the whole world of internet and social media and all of that at our fingertips. And then scores showed a worse decline in lower income households. So technology just further exacerbating educational inequality. Okay, so that's underlined too. Let's talk a minute about mental health. So COVID-19 obviously affected us all, especially in the medical field, maybe more than other areas. But where was Gen Z during this? So if we do the math, and I did it for us, their ages were 8 to 25 during the pandemic. I mean, critical years of, you know, adolescence and aging and development. So what this group particularly had a bunch of loss. They couldn't do the graduation that they had been working for all this time. That final sports competition, that opportunity, that tournament for a college coach to see them play, and maybe that was going to be the tournament they got to do. I mean, all of that was lost. You know, music competitions, all of that. As many of us were affected, but some critical things that they missed. And then again, perceiving the world as more physically dangerous. Led to more time living at home. So we're nice and snug with our parents. And then again, if you remember a few years ago, like people don't want to work, right? Because wages are too low and I'm not working under these conditions. But because the parents, we raised these kids to value themselves. They to value their own worth. And so if they feel like they're not being respected, then no, they're like, I don't need to show up for that. And so, you know, it's a good tenet, it's a good idea, and it just hasn't translated well as this generation is entering the working environment. Okay, but there's reasons for it. All right, so when I ran this lecture by my friend Anna, you know, this was her response before I put this slide in. And I do think it kind of sums up, Gen Zers are tough but sensitive. You know, we just gotta approach things a little bit differently. So again, more reliance on parents has led to a little bit less emotional resiliency. And then all of us really are drawn to electronics and social media, but maybe younger adolescents aren't aware of how this kind of affects their own mental health and loneliness and isolation. And it's not just Gen Z, right? It's everybody. So this article came out in the Atlantic in February of 2025 as the antisocial century. So if you look at numbers, from 2022 compared to 2023, adults spend an additional 99 minutes in the house. So kids are going out less and we're going out less. Do you know why? Because I can just watch stuff in my house. I can work from home and I love it. I can shop from home. I can order food from home. So why do I need to go out and like talk to people? And then additionally, this delay of family formation. So everything's just a little bit more homey and a little bit slower. And frankly, I love it. Oh no, I canceled my plans. This has been terrible for me to stay in. Let me grab my pajamas. So another interesting part from this article is they did an experiment, actually in the Chicago Metro. And so their control group was like, do your daily commute, your normal daily commute, your headphones in, reading your book, whatever. And then they instructed the experimental group to just chat, just do a little small talk with people. And then had both of those groups reflect on how they felt afterwards. And the group that did some human connection actually felt more positively. Nobody thought they would. Everybody thought they were going to be happiest in their own little world, not talking to people. But upon reflection, social interaction actually felt better. And so this concept of the importance of reflecting back on the experience is going to be important. So you can recognize, man, I feel bad after all that social media, or I felt, weird after this patient interaction because of this. Okay, so that self-reflection I'll talk about too. Okay, everybody's heard this phrase before. If you get a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, and you'll feed him for a lifetime. But this assumes that everything stays the same. The way that we've learned to fish is the same, but clearly things change. Things are changing, so we have to change too. All right, how do we learn? So starting to bring in adult educational modalities. How do humans learn? So this book, Grasp, was written by the head of open learning at MIT, really good. And he kind of goes through all of the ways scientifically why and how people learn. So spaced, a lot of this is you're going to be familiar with, and I'm giving it language, and I'm going to give you examples. So spaced repetition, flashcards, right? You see the same information over time. I've practiced it, and then you get to it again later. Spaced repetition is a way that humans learn. Interleaving. So this concept is interesting. It's learning something completely different from like the main thing that you're trying to learn. So I'm studying for step 1. I need to learn all this information. My brain is overwhelmed, need to take a break. Go learn how to bake a cake. Go learn a new creative task and then come back to your step 1 studying. And that interleaving, so leaving space to learn other things, has been shown to solidify learning better as well. Heightened emotion, okay? So I'm gonna give you a great example that we're not trying to do with our trainees, like PTSD. You traumatize somebody, heightened emotion, they were so scared, they're gonna remember it. That's not what we're trying to do. But the example of, having an emotional experience, an impactful patient story, something really exciting or fun, heightened emotion is gonna help adults, humans learn. Okay, all right, here we go, let's go see if this works. So felt difficulty. If you guys have not heard of Dr. Becky, I absolutely love her. If you want to see this again, you can just Google Dr. Becky and learning space. It's the first thing that comes up. But this concept of felt difficulty, I think she explains really well. And when we're talking about cultural change from the ground up, from med students, early residents up, I think this concept, if you articulate it, can be helpful. So let's see if it works.
What does resilience feel like? I think the word resilience has a positive connotation, but when you're being resilient, it definitely does not feel positive. I think that's so beautiful. Being resilient doesn't feel resilient at all. It feels so messy. Another way of thinking about it is we also have not knowing and knowing. The space between not knowing something and knowing something is really painful. Especially if you fashion yourself to be someone who's academically talented, because then it almost feels like your academic success or your identity as a smart person is tied to knowing. When you're in the space of that, it's really easy to want to exit something. So this has a name in my mind, right? It's called the learning space. This is actually a learning, no matter what you're learning, learning on the job, something from puzzles, learning to read. You don't know how to do it, you want to know how to do it. And what I think is really empowering to know is the learning space has one feeling associated with it: frustration. That's literally how learning feels. And if you think, then frustration becomes this an almost amazing thing you can learn to love. It's painful. This is actually a sign that I'm learning. Whenever you're frustrated, it literally means you're somewhere in the learning space. And why frustration tolerance is so important is because people think that resilience and success comes from getting to knowing as soon as possible. They're wrong. Resilience and success comes from the length of time you can just tolerate being in this space. So the longer you can tolerate being here, the more you will ride this, and the more you'll eventually come here.
Okay, so give me the answer, but then are we building that resilience? Are we building that? So felt difficulty, that frustration helps us learn. Okay, a couple more. Again, so everybody's heard of this Socratic method, being in a state of curiosity, asking why, asking questions. That also helps learning be solidified. Getting the learner to produce something, right? So this is the concept of teach back, right? You produce the language, you produce the concepts that you're trying to learn, and that helps us learn. And then we have a 7 to 10 minute attention span. So, if you're doing a traditional lecture, you should have something a little interactive every 7 to 10 minutes. Okay, so a lot of the rest of this talk is going to be combining the science of how we learn and applying that to our modern learners. What do our trainees want? This is what they want, not necessarily what we can provide for them. Good. Work-life balance. There's our first triggering word, right? So the importance of having a life outside of work is important. Hobbies, family, whatever, that is going to be important to our current generation of learners. They want a trusted and respectful learning environment. What else? What else could you call that? Oh, triggering word number 2, safe space. I didn't call it safe space because I didn't want everybody to immediately be turned off. But the concept of feeling comfortable and welcome in the environment that you're trying to learn has been shown to empower your learners and actually have them perform better. So from the book Grasp again, when they tested people who felt marginalized in the group, their IQ scores were 10 to 15 points lower. They took that same group into a different setting where they no longer felt marginalized, and their IQ, for whatever that's worth, their testing improved. So there is something to be said for having a safe space to learn. Okay, they want a profession that makes them feel satisfied and proud. And so again, the social justice, a job with commitment to the welfare of others, the ability to affect change, having value, high levels of job support. Again, the preference, maybe not what every job can provide. Same with customized experience. And I would argue that we all kind of want that, right? I want to be on vacation when I want to be on vacation. If I need to take a weekend off for a sudden soccer tournament, I want to be able to get that off. And that's my customized work experience. Skills over abstract knowledge. So the history of all of cardiac disease is going to be less interesting than how that is applied to how we treat patients now. And then wellness. I don't know if that's the last triggering word, but no, it's on there too. So the concept of wellness is going to be important to our current generation of trainees. And I just think this also emphasizes med school. You should be so focused too. Like, oh, you need wellness? I'm just going to add that mandatory wellness to your lectures. All right. So this is a thought experiment. And again, I am also demonstrating for those of us who make lectures, another aspect of Slido. So I'm going to start it. So you want to cook a great new dinner. How do you find a recipe? Do you Google it? Do you find a YouTube video? Yeah, it's already a TikTok. How do you find a new recipe? There's always somebody who puts open a book. There we go. Yep. I don't make this tied to your generation, but that would be interesting. And if you haven't worked in the phrase adulty or adult into your vocabulary, I strongly
It's
recommend
not like
it.
an attenuator.
Yeah, a 10-year attending, that's right. All right, good. So a lot of Google search, some YouTube. Happy to see a couple people are on TikTok, and that's actually my preferred method because I think it's great. Okay, good. So we got one more. And again, I'm demonstrating Slido if this is something that people want to use in presentations to break up the lectures, 7 to 10 minute attention span. So this is another one. This is like a cloud, a word cloud. So you're gonna just groom your dog. Dog grooming is like so expensive. I'm just gonna figure out, I'm a doctor, I can just figure out how to do this myself. How do you figure out how to do that? How are you gonna look it up? So with the word cloud, the more people type in the same answer, the bigger it gets on the screen, and then we can see all the other little ones. Some institutions have like a free polling available. Here.
Don't buy it. I mean, we have to identify themselves as anti-dog.
Sometimes I've gotten like absolutely just would not try. Okay, good. So that, part of this is again demonstrating educational tools. Let's make our lectures more interesting, more interactive, maybe turn out to be better. I don't know. Okay, that's it for slide. What would a Gen Z do? Well, we have some. So we have some examples. This is my tech family watching their brother play soccer very. Seriously, why are you guys even here? Okay. In general, though, they're independent learners, but they have to want to. They have to be curious about it. Okay. If you ask them to go actively do something, they have to really be curious about wanting to do it. Otherwise, they're gonna be like, no, you can just tell me how to do it. Okay. But they can solve their own problems. And I think the trade-off is how do they communicate those needs back to us? Okay. So again, a less problem-solving social childhood. So we have some different communication skills as they're entering the workforce. Okay, so concept of hard skills versus soft skills. Hard skills are measurable. How fast do you type? How proficient are you in this language? What was your test score? Versus soft skills, right? So things that we learn from on-the-job training, thoughtful reflection, this communication, flexibility, time management are kind of areas where we see differences amongst the generations. So those interpersonal skills, okay? So that's going to transition into feedback. So again, this concept of grit, I think is helpful in how we approach giving feedback to our learners. So we're going to coach some grit. So literally, as I'm looking this up and finding whatever educational article I can about particularly medical education and feedback, just mainly be nice. Like that is part of it. Just be nice. They're just not going to accept this fear-based culture or shame, right? We've known this for a while. Again, I'm putting language to concepts that have been in medical education for a long time. So approach your feedback like you're a coach. We're training you, you're going to get better. It's just practice, it's time, it's spending time in that felt difficulty, that learning space. So we're coaching to get better. Okay, so learners want honesty while being heard and engaged. So again, feeling like they're part of the team. So be real about your own experiences, right? You're a real person. Oh, when I was studying that, yeah, it was difficult. I still have to look up the workup for hyponatremia every time, even though I'm pretty. Let me just look it up to be sure. Okay, know their names. This is not the first time you've heard this concept. Not that I'm like perfect, but when I sit down with a new group of learners, I make sure I know everybody's name, where they're from, tell me something fun about yourself. I never ask third years what they're going into because I think there's already enough pressure on them, and also I don't care what you're happy to go into. But pull them into your learning space so they feel comfortable. Set expectations. Heard this for a while, but do we always do it? Do we always do a good job? Maybe not. So setting clear expectations and identify their area of neededness. If you want somebody to feel part of your team, here's your role. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to be responsible for this part. And then that person feels part of the team, more inspired to work harder. Give feedback immediately. So still the other rules of feedback apply, not public shaming, difficult feedback should be given in private, but immediately you don't wait till the end of the week and be like, man, the presentation sucked all week, right? tell them earlier, hey, I really liked how you gave me this part. I found the assessment plan a little confusing. Maybe make a problem list and give it to me enumerated. Feedback immediately, and then you can see if they can work on it more quickly. It should be about the process and the product, not the person. You know, instead of like, you're a quiet person, aren't you? That sounds different than I'd like to hear more about your thought process and what you're thinking so that I can know if we're on the right track or not. So it's the product, the person. Emphasis on thinking strategically. How do I approach problems? And then we have to support the life skills development. And I think this is different than previous generations because they didn't work as much. They didn't have to work. They got to enjoy their childhood. You know, so we have to do some of that life skills support into their first jobs, right? Many students come straight from college into residency. They didn't have a lot of work. So this was residency is their first job. And then going back to that reflection, right? How did you feel about that? How was that interaction? Have them reflect on the experience, even if it's difficult, to see what positives you can pull out of it. And was it actually maybe better than anticipated? Okay, and I really like the phrase not yet. I don't like how I have it on the slide, but whatever. Use the phrase not yet, right? So your presentations, they're not quite there yet, right? And that emphasizes the room for growth and learning, like a coach would, rather than just the negative. Okay, so we're gonna get there, just not yet. All right, quickly moving through some of the preferred educational. So again, what do our learners want? How do they want to learn? That's maybe different than previous generations. So electronic learning materials, right? Like we joke, like some of our distinguished, experienced faculty will be like, oh, you have to read the book. You have to read the book. And I'm just like, no, nobody's buying books, right? They're going to do it online. They want a digital copy because, they want it to be searchable, right? I want to just like using Google. Oh my gosh, I need to look up thrombocytopenia. I want to be able to search thrombocytopenia and pull that out of all my learning materials. That is the way that learners want to learn. So I think this transitions nicely into the whole concept of what is the answer, which is really a problem for the medical student level. But we did this, right? In college, to get into medical school, you have to have a good GPA. And a lot of college classes still emphasize the cramming techniques. All you got to know is all this vocabulary, and you do that, you're going to get an A on the exam. So same thing with MCAT and board setting. It's cramming, right? How much of us are still using stuff we learned on step one? Not a lot. Okay, so we crammed, we learned it, we did the exam, and now you have to learn how to learn differently in clinical training. So we told them to do questions, more questions. And after you finish a question, what is the answer? So that's not different. This isn't different generationally, right? Like we all had to do this too for the older faculty in the room. But the other aspects of our childhood gave us those other skills to say, okay, yeah, it's not just about the answer. We need to emphasize that more with our current learners because this whole concept of is it going to be an exam is really, with the higher levels of anxiety, is much more prevalent. This is the one article I was able to find about the concept of give me the answer. And it was, I think this one was out of Canada, I want to say. So again, this is a global problem. This request for the answer, and there has to be just one, black and white answer. And they found that it undermines the development of critical thinking. So their recommendations were to, again, prioritize the process, the strategic thinking, and then walk through this uncertainty. I don't always know the answer. Sometimes the patient gets better and I just have to take my best guess. And working through that verbally and letting you know that's okay is part of what we need to do as educators now, okay? So flipped classroom, this is not new. We've been doing this for a long time. This is the concept of you give students the materials before coming into class, they get into class, and then teach each other, or you go over the concepts together. There's tons of articles that show this is effective. And when I was looking at these learning modalities, I'm looking up for things that were not only effective in teaching the concepts we want to teach, but were also positively reviewed by the students. Okay, so flipped classrooms done right is in that category. Interactive lectures. So again, these having polls, having games, having something that requires back and forth interaction. Why are we still doing 1 hour lectures when we know the adult attention span is like 10 minutes? Which is why I make you do stuff, okay? So lecture content should be digitally available and searchable, just like again in real life. Apply everything to a real life example or make it emotional to add to learning, and then justify why. The benefit is not obvious. This is why I'm teaching you this. There's some things I have to do in my sub-I that are LCME requirements. And students are like, why is this in here? And so I literally, in the interest of transparency and explaining why, I'm like, LCME requires this to be in your curriculum. We have decided that this is the best place for it. So it's important to learn. It's here on this rotation because it has to be somewhere. And that transparency, I'm just justifying why. So interactive lectures, again, we know that simulations work. There's tons of examples of how OSCEs and simulations are effective. Teaching procedural skills. I just really liked this article and wanted to include it. So this is from Orthopedics, and they went through and systematically figured out a way to teach their learners procedures, which I just really liked. So these 4 steps. The first one is demonstration, where the educator demonstrates the procedure, doesn't say anything. Literally nobody can do that. I could never do that. So let's just skip to number 2. Number 2 is demonstrating the steps while they're watching, right? So I'm deconstructing what I'm doing. First, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to look for this, I'm going to do this. Comprehension, educator's still doing it, and the learner is talking through the steps. And then finally, demonstration. So a little bit different than the see one, do one, teach one. And they found this very effective with those ortho procedures. So I just liked it. Okay. Visually appealing digital content. So what is that? It's sketchy. So this is about where the room divides, and like people who are like, obviously, and everybody else is like, yeah, I still don't know what sketchy is. So we're gonna do a quick. We're gonna use sketchy. We're gonna use sketchy as our example of what visually appealing things look like. Okay. So if you already know what sketchy is, go ahead, take a nap. Get your face neck pillow on. Take a quick nap. Okay. But for everybody else, stay with me. It's not actually too bad. So this is an example of a picture from sketchy. Yeah, trigger everybody in the room. So what is this? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what is this? But obviously. Anybody remember like what the 3 things are in the back? Do you remember what that is? Tricuspid valve. Good. Years later, right? Catalytic positive. Yeah, good job. Everybody's triggered. Okay, and then I break it down like this, and it kind of starts to make sense. So this comes with a video. And yes, I did have a Gen Z train me in sketchy before I put this together. Thank you very much. So they start the video with like a blank, not blank, but they start drawing it in and talk through the video. So it is like a digital, tiny little mini chalk talk on this subject. And then, so you can start to see it makes sense. Okay, so we got a cat, it's catalase positive. We got 3 pyramids in the back, it's the tricuspid valve. And so, protein A, the staph, because staph aureus has a little protein A. And so that's how it works, a visual digital representation to help with learning, right? We like that. But again, if you just see this, you're like, seriously? Okay. Okay. All right, good. So again, is this our digital visual representations? Does it work? Okay, so this is an article from 2024 for hospice and palliative medicine. They gave students 12 little short animations, had them watch it, and then pre and post test. Did it work? Did they learn? These little animations were statistically significant in improving confidence and knowledge. So improved some parts of it, but not behavior. Oh, good. Educators are still necessary. So how do we incorporate this behavior into the learning? It works. All right. Get some sketchy face-to-face teaching. Stay with me. Stay with me. I know. How do you face-to-face teach the Zoomers, right? They don't want to come to class because your lectures are boring. But anyways, we've already done some of this. Near peer teaching, right? We have chief residents. We have 4th years in 2nd year medical classes. This is much less intimidating. They're part of the team. So this is effective face-to-face teaching with near peer teachers. They want informal language and communication. Be charismatic. When I was asking my 2nd year medical students kind of about how they feel about 1-hour lectures, you know, I was like, you guys don't want to sit through an hour-long lecture, right? And the first response was like, well, is it given by a comedian? Because like then I would. So if we could all just be comedians, much better attendance at lectures. I don't know if that's realistic, but that's what they said. In person, PBL, TBL, CBL. So all of the team-based learning, problem-based learning, working through things together, that is effective and well-liked, as long as it's done well. And that's where you have parallel, if you're doing a small group, everybody should be getting the same information. It's not like one educator is giving everybody the answer sheets and another group doesn't get it, right? So it has to be the same. Again, making it an emotional experience is going to help with the face-to-face teaching and gamification. All right, so let's turn our education into a game. As again, we're just going to split the room in half, right? The back half is done Kahoot before, right? The front half is like, what is this? So make it a game. This is a Jeopardy, right? Jeopardy's a game. It's fun to learn. But so Kahoot is another option if you're wanting to do a fun interactive lecture. There, let me open it. So let's do it. So you can get your phone out. You can scan the QR code. There's a free version of this, of course, and then there's paid versions. The free version, I think you can do 10. And let's pick appropriate names in the back there who've done this system before. So the free version, you can have 10. If you buy the like whatever the cheapest version is, you can get up to 50 participants. I don't think we have more than 50, so we should be good.
Med student.
Med student 4, you have a name. Nice. All right. A little over 40 is what we could have. Okay, so there's going to be 3 questions. Again, you've got a minute to 30 seconds. This is not high stakes questions, just everybody relax in the back there. Okay. All right. Some of this is demonstration. All right, I think we had like, probably that's everybody who's going to do it. So it's a game. You get to pick your name, and then I have to say this for the older people, they get very upset. How quickly you answer the question helps put you in the ranking system. So even if you get it right, but you're the last one to respond, you're going to be lower in the podium. Okay. Sorry, ruined it for the back.
It's just so cool.
All right, I'm starting it. Sorry. All right, so first question. This is the grand rounds. It's going to start 3, 2, 1. This is a true or false. I picked an appropriate Kahoot name. So if you're wanting to make a lecture, you can just do a true or false question. Again, on the free version, you have true or false, you have multiple choice. So if everybody answers, it'll close the question if we're still waiting, or I can close it myself.
We love a solo 5 each.
Okay, great. Wow, really nice. Okay. Good. So this is an example of the question. Everybody sees the results, and then we'll see our podium. Oh, med student 4. See, should have gone with a name. How quickly they got that in there. Okay, so next question. This is going to be a multiple choice example, and there is a correct answer. When I did this with my family, my oldest was like, "This is an opinion question." It's very upset. So, you know, you still have to phrase your question appropriately. The correct answer was number 1, like obviously. Okay.
That's how they just say it's like, oh,
All right, last one. And I'd use this one because you can put videos in. right? So you can be more interactive. Like you can take a video off YouTube, you can chop the part that you want in to do your question. Do we need to see it again? So you can make your stuff fun. Let's see. 45. Good, right? So Parkinson's, tremor. Okay, now we see who wins. So you can see how this can be engaging and more fun, and you can still learn the content, and maybe people will. Okay. Great. Okay. All right. Oh boy, I must have switched between lectures, huh? I'm not gonna do that. I had 2 lectures open. We're gonna do this. Okay, again, when I looked it up, does it work? It works. Okay, so a lot of these educational studies are small, but they did find that gamification can be helpful and more fun for the students. They like it better than traditional. These are all compared to traditional lectures. And did they learn? Yes, they did. This one I included just because, like, I mean, the amount of work, like, you could go nuts with this. So this was a medical school in Asia, and they like made like an NADPH, like ATP game to like learn these concepts. Like, I'm not doing that, but you could take concepts and make them games, and it is effective in teaching. Okay, what else is out there? So Look it. Just there's other game programs that you could use. Quizzes is helpful to do, like if you want to send your learners an email, do these questions, they can do it asynchronously, you can see the results and get the answer afterwards. So there's lots of other things that you can do for visual, interactive gamification for teaching these concepts. All right, what is my ask for the trainees? You got to assume the best of your educators. Give us a little credit. We do love to see you grow. I promise almost everybody in academics can make more money. We're here because we want to be, because we find it valuable, because we like working with learners. Okay, remember why you chose your program, right? It's a two-way street. We chose you, you chose us. Change is critical and inevitable, but some of the methods that have been used for a long time are effective and have produced good doctors. So we're gonna change, we're gonna work with as education changes, but some things work, and that's why there's some hesitancy to change. There's demonstrated success. All right, look, I had to bring a few more receipts. This is my 7-year-old dressed himself for the day. This is fit. And I had to confirm, did I use the word correctly? And my Gen Z cousin says, good job. And then I was very happy with myself. Okay, and so my ask the trainees, join us, right? This is a two-way street. We are actually pretty teachable. Most of us were pretty good students too. So the people who have come to this lecture, who are in this room, these are people who want to learn and are interested in how we can go forward working together. And listen, again, dog grooming is really expensive. So if you figure out a better way for me to search up how to groom this thing, I'm happy to learn it. You know, is it Chat GPT? I don't know. But I'm happy to learn as we're going forwards too. And this is for all of us. Don't get stuck in the echo chamber, right? Don't get on that Reddit thread or that group chat or, you know, that faculty meeting where it's just talking about is how difficult it is. We know it's difficult. Everybody has to change as a different generation. So don't just get caught in thinking that this way of thinking is the only right way of thinking. Whatever we choose to focus on is what's going to grow. Okay, so water what you want to work on. Conclusions. Okay, so reviewing, there are differences for these generational skills and the anxiety. We are overdue to match our education with how adults learn. Okay, everybody loves Kahoot. Okay, and then reviewing our educational tools, set expectations and transparency. Slido is a fun option. When you're doing feedback, it's coaching, it's not yet. It's here's what we need to do to get where you want to be. Using visually appealing educational tools is going to be attractive to learners, and then gamification. And like, why? Because this is happening. We're not going backward. There's not going to be any magic fix to change the way that childhood has been for the last 2 decades. Okay. And if like Gen Alpha is anything to like, if my kids, my Gen Alpha kids are like, I mean, she saw me post that picture. This one. All right, fine. And then this thing is just, he's crazy. He's going to be, but same energy, same positive, you know, whatever. So as always, Mr. Fire. Right, Mr. Fire around.
Put that on the GI.
And that's it. That's all I have, guys.
Does anyone have any questions?
Oh boy.
Some of these are probably people.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sure.
Debbie, can I?
Any questions in the chat?
Yeah, that was a great overview, especially those of us, in the first sort of learning thing, and plus having children of that age.
Yeah.
So couple of questions. One is humanism, Yes, this is all about the learners, but they're all going to become physicians and then take care of multi-generational groups. So how do you teach them to learn? Because many times it's, at least with my children,
Yeah.
So, but that is one aspect. And also how the AI, which you had mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, I always get asked
Yeah,
about.
because in endocrine, which I'm fellowship director, one thing that happened during the pandemic was the board pass rates went down because of the virtual learning. That's how ABIM and APTEM together did a study, and virtual learning wasn't as good for other areas like endocrinology. And so we had to get back to in person for a lot of things. So those are some of the thoughts I want to take.
For the first part, for the entitlement and, it's in general, right? Medical students and residents and fellows are really good learners, right? They're good students. You didn't get to that point without being a good student. So a lot of it is just pointing it out and being like, listen, when you are interacting with somebody who's older, like these are going to be their expectations. And you're certainly allowed to be yourself, but I know you want to be an empathetic physician, person, whatever. And so, when I am approaching it, I approach it like this to take that into account. It's just teaching some job skills. It's teaching some of those life skills that didn't have to be done 10 years ago because those kids drove their siblings to practice or worked or whatever. So some of it is just that, as with my kids, they where they are now, like kind of being interested in this, like I'm making extra sure that I'm forcing them to do like life skills stuff, or things like I'm forcing them to do things to make sure we're building those skills. The virtual learning, I think we saw deficits kind of in a lot of areas. And I don't know if there's a fix particularly for that, other than it's just waiting for the pendulum to kind of swing back to having, more of that experience in patient care time. I do always get asked about AI and Chat GPT. When I was researching for this, there wasn't a lot of that. Like again, that 2 parts of the data that I was looking at. Is it well received by trainees and does it work? And I don't think we have the data on that yet. And that's why I don't really talk about it. I mean, I think informally, like hearing how people use it is interesting, whether it's appropriate or not, making sure we're not like using it to submit like college essays, there's appropriate ways to use it and not, but I don't include it because I couldn't find anything that felt like it was evidence-based or really usable yet. I'm sure it's an area of ongoing research and I'm sure there's opportunities for it, but that's kind of why I don't talk about it, because I didn't find a way that we could confidently apply it.
I think, and I've been kicking this around, like it would be great to have kind of like a journal club where we're doing some modeling and we're using like open evidence as a group. So this is a new, like noon session I wanna host at some point. So like we can open it up and like, how do we ask things? Like what
Yeah.
best practices? Like how do we get to the answer? And then maybe we compare to some classic.
I think that would be great, especially if you're having the trainees who are maybe more comfortable with like the AI and open evidence and bringing in sort of how they would do it. And you're like, okay, here's how I would do it, and let's compare and see if this looks accurate.
I wonder, we're a geographically diverse country, but we are a very geographically diverse state as well, right? We have deep Appalachia in the east, and we have Midwest out in the west. And I come from deep Appalachia, and I wonder, the framework here is great. We're dividing people by generations, by times and what's going on. But for me, I almost feel 2 generations before that because I was in deep Appalachia, right? So is there any thought or any literature about overlaying like geographic diversity on generational diversity?
No, that is interesting. And again, this is why I call it all generalizations, because I think people, it really just kind of depends on the childhood of that person and what their expectations were, from their parents, and what did the household look like. So you can't uniformly divide it by birth year. I didn't see that. A lot of the research in this is because it's all like educational things. So a lot of it's small, a lot of it's we tried this and then we tried this. So I didn't see anything, but I do think that's interesting. You could break it down by geography, or again, like what your childhood was like.
Or even income, because you showed
immigrant parents, I think, can affect expectations.
That's what I always think about when people say you're a millennial or you're a
But
I grew up in a place where that was 2 generations
right
after I came.
Yeah, exactly. You could put your like identified group, I guess.
Yeah.
If for like classroom settings or auditorium settings when you're giving lectures, is there data to show that when learners sit towards the front, they have better engagement? Because I hate being that faculty member that's like everyone's sitting in front.
I have. I think my own questions, so you can rip it back up.
Yeah, that's probably good. I haven't come across any data, but I think anecdotally, your eager viewers are in the front.
Well, thank you